And it takes a little bit to load because it's got a video.
Patience. I always said if I had patience, I'd have been a doctor. Okay, yeah.
Coming on stage.
Alrighty.
Slowly.
Might be there in the PowerPoint.
Where?
Yes. Hey, Kaedrich, how are you?
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
I like to see you.
Excellent.
Can I take pictures?
Absolutely.
You got it.
That would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I ordered light for you. I was like, oh, he doesn't have a light on him. But he should realize it.
Warm enough in the place it is.
It's very warm.
Well, all the engineers and all Humpty Dumpty's men could not find out the switch for those lights.
Oh,
Are
boy.
you serious?
Oh, I'm so serious. Oh yes, no, it doesn't seem to be PowerPoint.
I'm in good light. You want to come by me?
Hey, look, that could be it.
That's it.
See? Watch it.
Maybe not. I don't see. It doesn't seem to be extended like a set. Oh, look, here it comes.
Yes, that's a good sign.
That's
But that's what happens when we
I don't know, goes away.
go to our display mode. Because when I put it on display mode, then it went to the display on this screen. Go ahead and hit like function F5.
Go for it. I can't see anything. I looked up into the light.
Yeah.
Here it is.
It's on blind.
You have a
We did it.
microphone, right? You do a microphone, right?
Yep.
Okay. And then the light is just like...
Hello. Okay. Excellent. With the hot light.
You can make an entrance if you want. I'm all
I almost
about
made
it.
a
Don't make
powerful
an exit.
exit. I almost made a powerful exit into the shadows.
Yeah, well, that would have been perfect in a way.
Cool.
Shadows.
Hello. Welcome to the 21st LA Conscious Life Expo. You guys having an amazing day and night? Woohoo! It's so cool to be in person, isn't it? And all together. Thank you. It makes me grateful too. Well, this is a special treat. A gentleman by the name of Kaedrich Olsen, and you've probably read his books. If you haven't, he's got some tremendous books out there, and he does workshops. He's got a huge presence, YouTube. I can tell you before, he was on my podcast. I'm Debbie Dashinger, Dare to Dream, and I did so much research on this guy, and it's tremendous what he's got out there. Also, great newsletters, by the way. So Kaedrich, if you don't know about him, had a very paranormal life. He grew up in a house that was paranormal, and these were normal experiences for him. So his navigation of this world is very different than most people. He also does something that I'm obsessive about, which is Vikings. I love everything Viking. Isn't that the coolest? And so to me, he is like the ultimate Viking. And he's got a beautiful book out about runes, if you're into that kind of divination, Viking divination, and I am. He knows so much. So you're in for a treat with a man who has superb knowledge in all these things and more. So welcome to Conscious Life Expo, and all of you, please, to Kaedrich Olsen. Woohoo!
All right.
And shadow work.
Shadow work.
Which we are all here for.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming here tonight. I'm really excited about this. This is a topic that is near and dear to me. It's been growing stronger and stronger in my repertoire of teaching because I've seen such a vast need for it. But let me tell you a bit how I got to that vast need. Debbie is awesome. Thank you so much, Debbie, for that intro. That's great. Because that's kind of sort of the progression of this. I did grow up in a haunted house. I did grow up with the paranormal, thinking it was perfectly normal and confused that it wasn't normal to other people. So I got into the Norse stuff. So I started teaching runes. I can translate Old Norse kinda-ish. And when I was working with the runes, when I was working with the Norse communities, I started to get into pagan men's spirituality, teaching that. Why? Because there's a lot of pagan men in the community, the Norse community, that, we'll not get too deep into it, but you know, their idea of spirituality is, "Hail Thor, who, big, strong, buff." I'm like, you don't have to be a warrior to follow the Norse tradition. And they went, "What?" And I'm like, great. So I talked about archetypes. But then I started seeing that this was a block to their spiritual growth. They may have had potential, but there was this block that kept getting in the way. And working with people one-on-one, doing rune readings, doing paranormal work with people, I started seeing the same blocks over and over and over. They'd be like, "Well, hey, I'm a spiritual person, but I get angry sometimes." I'm like, "Yeah, you get angry sometimes, that's cool. And sometimes I encounter something that I'm afraid of," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's gonna happen. That's part of spiritual growth." And they're like, "No, I'm not very spiritual because this is all about being peaceful. This is about being loving, about ascending." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I still get angry." And I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, you do get angry, right? I've said it in the previous workshop, and I'll say it all over the place. In your brain, you've got a brain stem. You've got a limbic system on top of that brain stem. You've got an amygdala. That's all part of that. And if you have an amygdala and a limbic system and a brain stem, which, if you're a human being, well, in this place is kind of questionable, right? If you're a human being, you've got all of those, which means you're going to get angry, you're going to get upset, you're going to get frustrated. You know, even if you talk to Buddhist monks that have reached enlightenment, they'll tell you they have their bad days. It's part of being human. In studying the runes, yes, there are some runes like Wunyo, it's all about joy and happiness. There's rune Yera, that's all about abundance and growth. But then there's Thurzas, which is aggression and violence and hostility. There's Hagalaz, which is about natural disruptions and chaos and destruction, disorder. Even in the runes, they understood that there is a dark side to spirituality, that there is a darker part of being human, and if you ignore it, if you forget about it, if you push it away, it's going to come back stronger. It's going to get in your way. And don't worry, we're going to talk a lot about that today. We're going to get into some of this stuff. And it's a warm room. And I'm a big guy, so I'm going to be drinking. And I promise it's only water. So, that's actually how I got into shadow work, by helping people in their spiritual growth, butting their heads up against walls, thinking that they shouldn't have these walls, and me going, "You're human. Of course you are." So let's talk about this. What are the shadows? Dun, dun, dun. Ultimately, when it comes to shadow work, and we talk, like, say, from the Carl Jung point of view, shadows are those things that you don't want to acknowledge. Those parts of your own inner psyche that you don't like to look at. Some people say, "Oh, it's your negative emotions, it's your negative beliefs." And I'm like, no. There are the thoughts, the emotions, the beliefs, and the behaviors that you don't want. You do sometimes want to get angry. You do sometimes want to feel sad. You know, if somebody in your life dies, you need to grieve. You have to. You have a biological need to do that. And that is a part of your spiritual development, to be able to grieve. Shadows are also the little hidden things hiding underneath the surface that you don't want to acknowledge. We'll talk a little bit about that too. So what we are saying here, shadows are unwanted thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and beliefs. They're not the negatives. What I also mean by that one is, oh, I'm always happy all the time. People ask me to do something, I have no problem. I'll say yes, I'll go do it for them all the time. Behind the scenes, behind the back, oh, why do I keep doing that? What is wrong with me? Like, why am I filled with this resentment and anger? It's like, because you're being happy and accommodating. You're overdoing it. Believe it or not, that happy state is a shadow. Oh no, I'm complacent. Oh, gratitude. Did you know gratitude could be a shadow? Oh, it's okay. I'm not making a whole lot of money. My job sucks. Not true. My job sucks, all this, but I'm so grateful I'm here because I'm learning from it. Oh, he just left me again. That's another person, but that's grateful because I'm learning to live with that, and I'll be happy, and I'm learning from. Sometimes it's okay to get a little pissy about it. And I'm going to use some cuss words while I'm up here because that's how I teach. It's okay to be a little bit, what's going on? It's okay to have some ambition. It's okay to have some drive, because what if that's what you need? So gratitude can be a shadow. It's an unwanted belief. It's positive, it's happy, it's fun, but it's unwanted. So when we look at things like helplessness, uncertainty, instability, we're feeling that insignificance, being rejected, that sense of injury, humiliation, weakness. In working with pagan men, weakness, man, vulnerability. We are taught not to show our emotions. We're told to just suck it down, hold it up. We're supposed to be big, strong. That's weakness, man. What strength is like, God, that really hurt. I can't believe something happened today. And it really, how do I let this out? How do I touch base with somebody? Who do I connect with to let this out? Opening yourself to vulnerability is a strength. Saying, I'm big and strong, I can handle this, just pile it on. That's actually weakness. That's hiding it behind. So believe it or not, being big and strong and tough for a man can be a shadow. Feeling defective, disrespected, inadequate. Here's an interesting one that comes up with this in our community. Some of us grew up in very Christian families, or very religious or intolerant families, or even atheistic families. And when we get into this alternate spirituality, what are you doing? Why are you following that stuff? It's terrible. It's awful. How can you believe that? So we feel this sense of shame. We feel this sense of exclusion. We feel that there's something wrong with us because all of our families are basically kicking us out. That shunning and shaming. When you're actually tapping into something that's beautiful and wonderful for you, that's a shadow. So some people don't pursue their spirituality because mom's going to think I'm weird and dad's going to say these things about me, and my brother or sister, I've seen it. I've actually seen it, talked with clients, my brother and sister say these things about me and look at the lives they're leading. How can I be like this? Well, you can. Now, here's another interesting thing. And the reason why we do shadow work is because anything that we think, feel, believe, or do consistently over and over becomes the way we are. Innately, we think we are that. So some of us, not all of us, but some of us were taught to believe that your job is supposed to be this boring doldrum. You're supposed to hate going to work. You're supposed to live for the weekend. But come on, think about this. You sleep 8 hours a day. That's a third of your day. You work 8 hours a day. That's another third of your day. Why would you be wishing for that third of your life to be over so quickly that you get to the weekend? Because we were taught, I'm supposed to hate my job. Who said that? We were taught that when we were growing up. But if you love your job and you love what you're doing every day, who cares about the weekend? Who cares if it's an 8-hour day? Who cares if it's a 10-hour day? You're living it, you're loving it, you're being it. But yet, nope, work's supposed to suck. I'm supposed to drink beer and go out and party with my friends and talk about how awful it is. Well, that's what we were taught. And that becomes an ingrained thing about who we are and what we believe about ourselves, about how the world works. And here's one of the things that sucks about beliefs is a lot of times people don't realize that they have a belief. This is how the world works. Everyone sees it. That's how the world works. And we have a cognitive bias inside. We have a confirmation bias inside. That if you believe in X and you go out into the world and you see 100 Y's out there, whatever. But you see that one X out of 100 Y's, you're like, see, right there, I told you that's how the world worked. See, I knew it. Because beliefs are pernicious. They will ignore those Y's and those Z's and those A's and B's that are out there until it finds that one X and goes, see, mom and dad was right. They were, see, that one time. But with shadow work, you can challenge those beliefs. You can become aware of it and you can test them. You can go out and prove it. It's like, prove yourself. And then when you choose to say, okay, I'm going to pretend that the world works like Y, and you get out into the world and suddenly you see 100 Y's and you're like, okay. Now I see it. And then you go back and see that X and you're like, that's kind of cool. Which brings us to a very interesting secondary benefit of doing shadow work. Is because we do these things so consistently and we're around people that reinforce our beliefs and reinforce our thoughts and our feelings, all of our emotions. We think that's how the world works, but now you do your shadow work and you can see other people pushing their shadows onto you. And you're like, oh, I see the work you need to do. That's cool. But that's your stuff. You can have that. I'm doing my own work. And it gives you this great ability to separate and go, cool, that's your work, and I see you doing that work. But I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do this work because this is cool. But until you become aware of it, this is how the world works. This is how I am. This is who I am supposed to be. This is what I'm doing here because that's the only way it is. Until you do shadow work, and then you're like, oh, crap. There is an identity crisis that sometimes comes from shadow work. Sometimes. But what I want to say here is this isn't necessarily who we are at the soul level. The higher self comes into this world with a purpose, with a meaning to it. It's here to experience something. We're going to talk about what it's here to experience and how it's to experience. Sometimes it's a clash with the ego. We'll talk about ego, and I hope to give you a new perspective of ego. But the soul is here to experience something totally different. But with the way we were brought up, the things we were taught about ourselves, the things we were taught about the world, sometimes the soul gets stuck inside the body going, doesn't have to be like this, does it? Really? 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 And then we start living this, I'm going to say false life. It's not really a false life. It's who we thought we were supposed to be. And then the soul is like going, come on, let's do this work. The fact that you guys are here in a place like this, surrounded by people doing this work, means you're tapping into your soul. You're tapping into your purpose. And the fact that you're here learning about shadow work means that part of you probably ready to wake up and get out of that little shell. That's cool. That's beautiful. I love it. I love seeing shadow work. By the way, if you ever talk with a shadow worker, we're kind of ironic. We're kind of really funny. People will come to me like, yeah, I was doing my work and then I've started falling back and I started yelling at a coworker and I'm like, really? That's really cool. What happened with that? And they're like, what do you mean that's really cool? I felt bad about it. I'm like, I know. And that's because you've been doing your work, that the psyche is now going, hey, can we work on this thing now too? And I'm like, yeah, that's a sign you're doing good stuff, so keep doing it. So we shadow workers are kind of weird. You tell us something bad's going on, and we're like, ooh, yeah, tell me more about that. That's awesome. All right. Another thing about shadows are the things that we're unable or unwilling to acknowledge or accept about ourselves. Again, I'm going to kind of poke on us men for a little bit. I've seen a number of men that wanted to do something that their mom or dad felt was too effeminate. You know, you have to go into football. You're playing sports. But I like dancing. No, you don't. They completely repressed their dancing. They completely repressed who they thought they were. I like drawing. I like playing music. You want to get into music? Do you know how much hard work that is? You're never going to make any money at music. There's all those people out there playing all this music. You're never going to do it. But I love it. Too bad. You need to go to college. You need to get a career. I was like, "Urgh." So we stuff it down. We push it away. We're like, this is crazy, but this is true. A lot of the people I work with in the paranormal, when I was a kid, there was this imaginary friend that I had. I don't think they were imaginary, but they would tell me about how things worked in the world, or they told me about where their body was, or they told me about the things that they did. But mom and dad are going, oh, stop it. I don't want to hear about this anymore. This is you making up all these games again. I don't want to hear it. So we push it down. We stuff it down until one day it starts going, poke, poke, poke. You know, you have this ability to talk to ghosts. And then we're like, no, I don't. Stuff it down. Poke, poke, poke. You know that there's a spirit standing right next to you? No, there isn't. Stuff it down. We push those things down. We don't want to acknowledge it. Was it Robert Bly likens the shadow to a large bag that you carry around with you? That all those things that you're not supposed to be, that you are, you shove it into the bag, and then you drag it around, and every now and then you look inside the bag, because something in the bag will start going poke, poke, poke. You look in the bag, you go, ah, no! And you push it away. You're like, oh, that's not me. I'm a big, tough football guy. I'm not a dancer. Am I? So sometimes we push down those shadow things, those things that we told that we're not supposed to be. We're not supposed to believe in tarot cards. We're not supposed to believe in crystals. We're not supposed to believe in ghosts. We're not supposed to believe in higher self. You're supposed to just go to school, get a good education, be a doctor, be a lawyer, all those things. But this inability to recognize and admit those traits is what gives them power. When you don't want to look at those deep, dark, ugly things, when you don't want to open that bag and look inside the bag, you give them power. That's where you get the negative emotions, the self-detrimental beliefs. Oh no, I'm a blue-collar worker. My dad was a blue-collar worker. My mom was a blue-collar worker. That's how I'm supposed to be. So I'm just going to go to blue-collar work and that's it. But what about your dream about doing this or that? Oh no, that's not my place in the world. We shove it down. Destructive behaviors. Well, yeah, we're supposed to party on the weekend. That's what we do. We party till I can't stand it anymore. I'm going to die partying. Because that's what we're supposed to do. And so you learn to protect yourself by adapting your life, by repressing those qualities of your nature. Yourself, your higher self, your soul came into this world to experience something, to do something, to be there. Who you are innately, you were told, stop. You don't need to be that. Push it away. And this is a thing that we're going to talk about shadows all the time. And this is why, as a shadow worker, I love this stuff. Because every one of those shadows, please, if you take anything away from this, take this. Every one of the shadows in your life, the repression, the unwanted beliefs, or anything like that, you created them in some point in your life to protect yourself. Those shadows were there to help you for who you had to be at that point in your life. They're not helping you today. They might be getting in the way today, and you may not know about it, but at some point in your life, those shadows saved your butt big time. So it's okay to have gratitude. It's okay to have some gratitude for that. Oh, God, I can't stand the way that person keeps their hair. Thank you for that. What is this all about? Okay. This is because your survival came by adapting to those beliefs about yourself, your place in the world. It's kind of what we talked about. In order to survive, you had to adapt to your home, your school, your friends, your community, the society that you grew up in. You had to adapt. Every single one of us has shadows. I still do. As a shadow worker, boy, something new pops up all the time, and I'm like, oh crap, I don't want to work with that. Oh, I'm not doing this. Fine. You know, my mom died recently, and for the most part, it was really cool. It was really good to pass, let that go. But as I pushed myself into a grieving moment, I had that moment where I was like, oh, damn, I got to work on that too. You know, they will pop up at those weirdest moments. All right. But you don't have to take my word for it. There's this dude here that was on Gaia that has something to say about shadow work. And this dude can't be heard. My apologies. We will find a way to work, otherwise I will dub it. No. My sincere apologies. I don't know, but this is not connected to the AV like we thought, and there's nobody here to do it. It is turned up all the way. It's here. My apologies. So I just want you to know this is something that you'll be able to see on Gaia. It's coming up really soon, like next month. And we're talking all about shadow work, where shadows come from, how shadows help you, shadows is what you do about them. It was a great interview. Regina Meredith had some great things to say about it, and she really lent a lot to it. So my sincerest apologies that the audio is not working. But I promise you, whoever this dude is, he was saying some really cool stuff about shadows. It was really great. Yeah, I mean, he's even got like a ring like I've got. He's wearing a different necklace, though. That seems shady. All right. My apologies. But I promise you it's well worth your time to check that out. So when you get a chance to go into Gaia, we'll talk a bit more about Gaia. But good stuff there.
It's a great show, open-minded.
Yeah, it's a great show. Regina's awesome. I really, really like working with her. She's great. And everybody at Gaia is awesome too. And I'm not just buttering up people. They are good people there. All right, so let's talk about higher self. I'm going to have a different perspective, I think, that I'm going to give you of higher self, because we got this notion that higher self is just like peace, love, and light, puppy dogs, and rainbows, and it's awesome and touchy-feely, huggy, great. But what if higher self is a butt kicker? What if higher self can be a jerk? What if higher self can pull the rug out from underneath you? Just at those moments when you thought you got it all figured out, higher self comes and goes, screw you. We'll get into that. First thing I want you to think about is higher self as an oversoul. Think of it as like this entity existing in a higher state of being with all of these tendrils that poke through different timelines, different multiverses, different areas. And in this tendril, it sticks out and goes, ooh, I want to be a rock star. Ooh, and this time I want to be a warrior. Ooh, and this time I want to clean houses. Ooh, and this time I want to really struggle with relationships. And it goes through these lifetimes and says, ooh, I want to experience all of these things. And from each one of these individual tendril points of view, they're past lives and future lives. But from the higher self, they're concurrent lives. It's living them simultaneously, and it's like, ooh, cool. I want to focus on this over here. Now I want to focus on that over here and over here, but they're all part of the same being. We can't think of higher self as this linear thing like we are. It doesn't move through time in a linear way. It exists in a place where there is no time. Doesn't mean past, present, future. It's just no time. There is no space. It's everywhere and nowhere at once. It has this great notion. What is this saying? That it is a circle whose circumference is everywhere and its center is nowhere, something like that, right? That's higher self. It's everywhere but nowhere. And you are all of your past lives and future lives all rolled into one existence. So imagine this, that you are this great cosmic entity that can experience anything that it wants to, anywhere at any time. The only thing it can't experience is frustration and upset and disappointment. So it goes, wouldn't that be cool? Let's go into a lifetime. Let's go into a body where I have to struggle to make everything happen. Yeah, from the egoic point, all of you are like going, screw you, buddy. It's time to get out of here. But it doesn't have to be that way. Just to let you know, sometimes higher self has a bit of a different agenda than what we might think of at the egoic day-to-day level. And certainly, it can be vastly, not always, sometimes it's perfectly in alignment with our upbringing. I've seen that. I've seen people whose alignment and their higher self, beautiful, it worked out, but they still have shadows. They still have, people in their life that are like, what are you doing? All right, we got to talk about ego, because ego is going to get in the way, right? There are those people out there that says ego is what? Edging God out. Throw that away. We're going to throw that away completely. We're going to go back to Freudian psychology for just a moment. Just for a moment. How many people here have ever studied Freudian psychology? Couple. Few? Cool. Awesome. In Freudian psychology, we learn about the id. The id is that little child inside that says, gimme, 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 gimme. That's mine. I want it, want it, want it. More, 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 more. I am super special. Give it to me. That's what I want. When we hear somebody is very egotistical or they got an inflated ego, it's really accelerated self-aggrandizement because it's the id got out of control. Not the ego, it's the id. Also, what happens in Freudian psychology, we have the superego. That's the altruistic, philanthropic part of you that wants to give, give, give. Shadows can be there too. Man, I've seen so many people on burnout because they give, 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 and they never give to themselves. They just give, 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 and they're like, oh, what do I do next? You say no. I can't do that though, but they'll be upset at me. You say no. Can you say no? No. You just did. You say no. But the ego is this beautiful balance between that. The ego is the self. The ego is that part that can say, yeah, I want these things, and I want to give those things, and here are the resources, and here's what I need. How do I balance that out? That's ego. Ego is a self. Now here's another one. This one will really bake your noodle. One of the sacred names of God is I am. And we are told to be careful about saying I am, because it's a manifestation formula, right? Like, I am healthy. I am improving every day. I am getting better. I'm not saying any of the other stuff, right? Because we say I am. But if we go back to Latin, and we get the ego sum, is I am. Ego is a sacred name of God. It's not edging God out. It is you. It is a sacred part of you. When we look to, there we go, the Norse tradition. We have a poem called the Havamal, which is a saying of Odin, where he hung on the world tree. And in there, he hung there for 9 nights, and he gave himself to himself. Själfur själfum mer. We're talking about the lower self to the higher self. There's another poem in there where Själfur leithu själfen thik. Let the self lead the self. They're talking these different selfer, själfum. I'm not going to get into the grammatical parts of that, but they are talking about the everyday self versus the higher self. Even when we get to the Vedic tradition, we have 2 forms of higher self. We have Brahma, which is a great cosmic higher self. Then we have Atman, that exists within the body. That is the egoic higher self. And if I remember right, in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna is talking with, anyway, Arjuna's talking with one of the gods. The word has escaped to me right now. He talks about 3 forms of sacrifice. There's a sacrifice of inaction, which is meditation. And remember, sacrifice means to make sacred, not to get rid of or throw away. Sacrifice means to make sacred. So there's a sacrifice of inaction, like meditation and prayer. The sacrifice of action, going out and helping people, volunteering, giving and giving and giving. But then there's the 3rd most sacred form of sacrifice. The sacrifice of the self to the self. That's connecting with higher being, making your life a prayer, making your everyday being in alignment and in tune with higher self, with your purpose being here. That's ego. And that's okay. What we don't want is a self-aggrandizement thing. I'm super special, I'm wonderful because whatever reason. We don't want that. We want, cool, I'm connected with purpose, I'm connected with will, higher self, I've got this feeling. Let's go do it. That's the kind of ego we're talking about. And I want to give you another fun example of higher self, how higher self works. And boy, this has proven itself to be true over and over again. Remember when I talked about higher self could be this great cosmic being that came into this world to experience something because it couldn't experience frustration, it couldn't experience doubt, it couldn't experience upset? What if your day-to-day egoic self is on a roller coaster and you're going up to that first hill? Remember how that first hill is? You're like clutching on for dear life, going, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, I made a mistake. Can we go back? Because it's super big and you're ready to go over that hill and you know it's going to be scary and you know there's going to be these twists and turns and you're going to go up and down, and when it goes around that one curve, it's going to rattle like crazy and you know it's going to fly off the track, right? That's you, the egoic self, going, oh crap, why did I do this? Higher self is back at the dock, the beginning and the end of the ride, going, yeah, that was great. Can we do it again? Because it's been through it all. It exists in that continuum of existence and it knows that it's all sorts of fun. So let me give you a personal application of this. I'm not a big fan of driving. I live in Colorado and I don't really like driving in the mountains. But I had a kid who was staying at her friend's house in the mountains down near Colorado Spring, and I had to get a U-Haul to move her out of there pretty quickly. Meanwhile, I'm a big guy, so I'm scrunched up inside this tiny little U-Haul cabin going, "Urgh," and it starts raining. So now I'm driving for an hour, more than an hour each direction, in the rain, in mountain towns, and I can choose to go, God damn it, this sucks. Or I can go, cool, this is the big hill. All right, this is one of those little dips. This is one of those little dips. All right, we're going through the mountain roads. This is that big, shaky curve. So I try to see it from higher self perspective. I'm going, okay, that's how that is. What if, just what if you took a little application of that in your day-to-day life, instead of going, oh, I can't believe I have to talk to this person. Oh, I can't believe I have to go there. Or, having those days. What if you just go, all right, this is the roller coaster. Let's get on. Let's ride it. And like, ooh, this is fun. This is fun. Yeah, this is fun. But you just kind of give into it. You let yourself have that trip. You say, what if this is what higher self wants to do? And you just ride it. and you just go over there for the experience. Because let me pose this question. What if higher self here is just here for the experience? What if higher self just wants to experience the crap you're going through? And once it experiences the crap that you're going through, it's done. So if you could just take a moment and go, oh, this really sucks. What's this all about? Fine, I'll tolerate it, I'll deal with it. Now higher self goes, oh, okay, that's done, now what? What if that's the secret? What if the secret isn't pushing away all that ugly, nasty, crappy stuff we don't like and being peace, love, and light and happiness and joy, and instead going, ooh, ooh. Oh, that was all it was? What if you take that, just that moment? What if that's what higher self wants for you? What if higher self is a jerk? Yeah. When it comes to something like the dark night of the soul, I wasn't planning on talking much about this, but the dark night of the soul is when everything in your life goes to hell. Everything just falls apart. You hit rock bottom. You're gone. Everything is gone. That's higher self saying, we were living the wrong path. We were doing the wrong thing. We were going the wrong direction. We need to hit the reset button. Our day-to-day egoic self hates that. I went through one for 3 years before I learned to go, fine, I'll deal with this. I went through a dark night of the soul for 3 years, and I didn't have to, because I didn't have somebody like me in my life, because I wasn't me at the time. I was somebody different trying to figure out how to navigate the dark night of the soul, try to figure out what shadow work was. So it's very important that we do that, that we just even embrace the sucky moments and go, okay, what am I learning here? What am I gaining from this here? Because that's how shadows work. The psyche and the soul work together. They conspire together to give you that experience to either adapt and function in that environment that you're in, and then when you get out of that environment, now what? Oh, now I got to get through it. Now I got to relive it and not relive it, not re-experience it, but understand it, embrace it, learn from it, transmute that energy and bring it back in, because it's all the energy. In shadow work, we don't get rid of anything. We don't banish. We don't eliminate. We don't exercise. We don't do any of that stuff. We look at it, we shed light onto it, and we reabsorb it, we integrate it, so that we recognize it is an important part of you that we're not getting rid of, we're just giving it a new job. We'll get more into that in a minute. Let's talk a little bit about how to connect with higher self. And we're doing good for time. What if higher self was a part of you all the time? Because higher self is that little tendril poking itself into your body, right? Saying, here I am, who I am, what I'm doing, what's this all about. So I want to take you on a minor, brief little journey on what it's like to connect with that. Because we got a little bit of time here, we can do this. So follow me here as we do this. I want you to just take a few deep breaths. Just to allow yourself to relax, to be here in the moment, letting every breath you take and every moment passing bring you into a deeper state of relaxation and into a deeper place of your own mind. Noticing how it feels to sit here in these chairs. Maybe you're aware of your breathing and your heart rate. And with the eyes closed, becoming aware of the room around you, the light levels, the sounds, the temperature. And expand your mind to the life you lead outside of this room, the people, the places and things that are a part of your world, knowing there's a subtle spiritual energy that runs through everything. And in that subtle spiritual energy, you'll find higher level resonance, energy patterns like sacred geometry that help everything be in perfect order and give meaning and purpose to everything. And it's good to know that that higher level resonance comes from a singular source, which is your own understanding of what's sacred. So just take a moment to connect to that sacredness, to notice how it feels, and to experience it like an energy. And knowing that energy flows where your attention goes, just bring your attention to your head. And let that sacred feeling flow into your head to guide your thoughts and your awareness. And bring your attention to the heart center. And let that sacred awareness flow into the heart center to guide your feelings and your emotions and your connections to others. And bring your attention to the abdomen, to the power center there, some call the Dantian. Letting that sacred awareness energy flow into, filling and surrounding the Dantian to guide your actions, your presence in the world, your deepest intuitive knowing. And with every breath you take and every moment passing, let more and more and more of that sacred awareness energy fill and surround you. Being aware of that sacredness, completely integrated to every cell of your body, every organ, every gland, every tissue, every energy field. Feel that sacredness permeating all that you are and all that you're becoming. And it's okay if you don't know where it leads you. It's okay if you don't know what the next step is. It's okay if you don't know what to do with this. Just for now, feel that this energy is a part of you, an integral, growing part of you that can guide you and can open those next steps for you on where to go. And with that, go ahead and be aware of how your body feels sitting here, and taking a long, deep breath to integrate and come back fully into your body, bringing your awareness up into your head behind your eyes, almost ready to open your eyes. And when you're ready, just taking a long, deep breath, open your eyes, and we'll join right here. How was that experience for everybody? That's a way to connect with higher self. Again, you don't have to make logical sense out of it, and that's part of the problem. Sometimes the brain gets in the way and says, oh, it has to fit into these nice little boxes and has to be this nice line and it has to go here and here. Screw that. Just feel it and let that feeling be a guide. You don't know what it's going to do, you don't know where it's going to go, and sometimes that's all you need to do is just have that sense of connection, and that's okay. We're going to build off of this. We just basically did all of this. One of the things that you can do, it might take a little bit of work, but it might not, is to get to that place inside where there's that silence. You can be aware of your thoughts, you can be aware of your feelings, you can be aware of how your body feels, but it's like it's coming from this silent place inside. Because here's something interesting about higher self, is it always whispers. It's never going to be that voice going, hey, go over here and do that. Hey, get up and do that. No, you can never do that. Those are the loud, screaming, yelling voices. Higher self will be like, psst, hey, you should go buy that car. Like, psst, hey, you should go talk to that person. And then you go, no, that's stupid. I'm not talking to them. Okay, it's cool. It's cool. But you really should. It's always going to be like this persistent, almost nagging voice that never forces you to do anything. The shadows are the things that are going to force you. The shadows are going to be like, if you talk to that person, it's going to fill you up with this anxiety. You're going to have this nervousness, and you know they're going to say all these terrible, awful things about you. You're going to be awful, so don't go talk to that person. Psst, you really should. Which one do you want to listen to? Sometimes we can't hear the higher self because the shadows are busy screaming, trying to protect you. Remember when you were in 6th grade and you talked to that one person, you said that nice thing, and all those other kids laughed at you? That's going to happen now that you're 42. Psst, it's not going to happen. Trust me. Yes, it will. What do I do? Well, that's an example of how higher self and shadows kind of clash. Those shadows are there protecting your butt because you got laughed at in 6th grade. We all did, right? We all did. But now that we get up to our older ages, those shadows are still going, oh my God, you're going to do that again? And it's like, cool. When I was in 6th grade, I see how you were protecting me. You're right. If I had done that again, those kids would have laughed at me. But those kids, they were just as scared about doing the same thing as you were. Those kids were dealing with their own shadows. And so they were protecting themselves by casting their shadows onto you, because that was how they protected their butt, by coalescing together and being a group, and they were trying to make you feel weird. So of course you never did that. But now we're adults and we know that we need to collaborate. We need to connect and communicate and cooperate. And yeah, you got to protect yourself sometimes, because people can be jerks out there. Sometimes they're dealing with their own shadows. So it's okay to be on alert going, ooh, are there red flags I need to be aware of? So hey, shadow, instead of telling me not to talk to this person, why don't you be aware of potential red flags? And if there's a red flag, we'll walk the other way. Okay, fine. Now let's go talk to them. That's shadow work. That's kind of shadow. And see, it's fun, right? It's fun. It doesn't have to be deep, dark, and scary. All right. Uh-oh. I'm breaking a tenet there, aren't I? Because we need to have another view of the higher self. We are not spiritual beings having a human experience. Uh-oh. We are both human and spiritual beings having a dynamic experience. What happens to the spirit affects the physical. What happens in the physical affects the spiritual. It's cyclical. They help each other. This was kind of the basis of my book, Runes for Transformation. When you are aware of the runes of your inner world, and you're aware of the runes around you and the world around you, then you can change the runes on your inner world, and the runes around you will reflect you. Runes aren't used for divination, by the way. That was invented in the 1980s. Runes in the Old Norse time period were magical tools, tools for transformation. And the primary use of runes, written language of the Proto-Norse and Old Norse languages. They're letters, not cute little chips for fortune telling. Anyway, we're going to look at a very interesting way of describing this, because we have in our vocabulary today some confusion. Physical, spiritual, ethereal, astral, cosmic, numinous, 3D, 4D, 5D. We don't have the right language. By the way, I'm an agnostic. I'm not an agnostic, I'm an agnostic. Anyone familiar with that term, agnostic? It's a fun little concept out there that the divine and the sacred exist in a nonlinear language that we do not have the capacity in the physical world to express, and that everybody's perception of what is sacred is complete and uniquely different to every single person. But because we don't have the language to communicate that to each other, how do we even know it exists? How can we communicate that? We're working on it. We're working on getting there. So that's agnostic. We know that there's something sacred. We know there's something beautiful and amazing out there, but we don't have the right language. So we're developing language like third density, fourth density, fifth density. And the problem is we tend to see these in linear terms. Oh, here's third density, it ends here. Now here's fourth density, it ends here. We try to quantify it. And you can't quantify densities. All right, here's the physical corporeality. Now here's the ethereal world. Now here's the spiritual world. Now here's the... It doesn't work that way. Your day-to-day self, your egoic self, is third density, for want of a better term. I'm going to use some bad terminology and try to make the best out of it, right? But your higher self is fifth density and higher. What's in the middle? Well, this is kind of sort of what it looks like, sort of. Here's you in the 3D reality. Here's higher self in 5D reality. And here's the shadows in 4D reality. But you see they overlap. Did you see that even like 5D and 3D overlap? Right? And 4D kind of overlaps in there. Well, one of the things to know about human beings is we are powerfully creative beings. We create through observation. We are amazing at creating stuff. It's awesome. We create thought forms, egregores, tulpas. We create energy patterns all over the place. And we create spiritual distortions. Spiritual distortions that block our connection between 3D and 5D. That block our everyday self from higher self. And they're real because we experience them, we can observe them, we can interact with them, and we give them all sorts of fun names. We give them names as demons, angels, shadow people, little boogers, whatever we call it. These are all fourth density creations that we made that are spiritual and emotional distortions blocking us from 5D reality. And the cool thing about 3D reality is it proves itself with beliefs. Remember we talked about beliefs? You believe something, it's going to reinforce it. Well, you can't disprove the existence of 3D reality because you exist in it constantly. But 5D reality, oh, that's the job of 4D to say, wrong, it's not there. You're not something special. You don't have this higher self attached to you. You're not on some great cosmic roller coaster. You just need to go to work. And you need a party. And you need to be negative and unaccepting of the way your life is, because that's what we're supposed to be. That's what 4D reality creates. That's how we get blocked from higher self. Because, and here's the cool thing about being a shadow worker, I get to see I get to see how powerfully creative people are every day. I love it because I can see shadows. And meanwhile, people are going, ooh, there's this scary, awful thing in my house. I'm like, yeah, isn't it cool? Yeah. And they're like, what do you mean? It's scary. And I'm like, I know, isn't it right? Isn't that awesome? Because here's a cool thing. I also work with paranormal stuff big time. When I see a house full of like big scary stuff that's haunting people, books flying across the shelf, scary noises, bad smells, it wasn't the burrito for lunch, all that kind of stuff, I tell people to stop going, oh my God, what are you going to do to me? And go, oh, how can I help you? Is there a way I can be there for helping you? When you have that compassion shift, if there is a negative entity in the house, it's going to hate that. It's going to get out of there fast. If there's another spirit in the house that maybe you misunderstood or misinterpreted, it's going to go, finally, can we work together now? That's what I mean. We are powerfully creative beings. We're creating the stuff in this 4D reality that we see and experience, and we go, yes, it's real. That book flew across the room and there's this black thing. I'm like, yeah, how cool is that? But when you have that kind of an attitude of this thing trying to scare the heck out of you, and you go, wow, that was cool, do it again, it's going to go, I don't like you. And it's going to leave. We are amazing, and I love seeing this because we create so much stuff in the 4D. And I'm going to say something that's going to get me in trouble. Reptilian beings controlling the world exist here. And if we're moving on. Because I want you to be aware that energy, emotions, thoughts, and information, they're all the same thing. Energy is emotion. Emotion is energy. All your thoughts have an energy. All of that is just information. It's just information. So if you're feeling this beautiful ball of rainbow light coming into the room, yes, and it's information. If you're feeling like this sinking pit feeling inside of toxic energy, it's information. And we can do whatever we want with that information. We can change the meaning of that information because it's information. It's energy. And that's what's cool about shadow work is we can go, ooh, there's this big toxic thing inside me. And like, yeah. And let's change it. Let's transform that. Let's transmute it to something else because it's just information. Think of it like a screwdriver, right? You can use a screwdriver to build a great bookshelf and put it up on your wall, or you could throw it at your neighbor and say, shut up. That was perfect. So that's what information and energy, they're all the same thing. It's just how you use it. All right. So I want you to know that shadows can create a 4D blockage like we talked about, but doing the shadow work clears and clears the bypasses from those 4D distortions, allowing that 5D, 3D integration. Because I've seen it so many times. People have like a haunted house. I must be this really bad person. I drew this thing to me. I can't clear it. Yeah, you can. It's just information. Let's change it. We do that compassion shift. We'll laugh at it. We'll have a sense of awe and wonder. Well, I can't move up in life. I was born a blue-collar worker. I can't get there. But higher self wants me to be a movie star. Oh, no, that's not me. I'm too shy. Well, there's your 4D blockage right there. And we just transmute that energy of like, ooh, what can I do with that? We can use with that. Because information, energy, emotions, all the same thing. All right. Now with shadow work, we recognize, we talked about this earlier, that shadows exist only because they served you. Remember that. That's one thing I did want you to take away from this. is shadows are there to help you. They think they're doing a great job. And the more you ignore them and you let them just do their thing, they're going to think that they're doing a great job and they're going to keep doing it. If you recognize it, you say, stop it, I'm not going to get angry. Stop it, I'm not going to do this. And you push it down, they're going to like butt up against you and like, yes, I am. I'm doing this work. That's what I'm supposed to be. But if you know that it's the psyche's way of keeping you safe, if you know that this is how the psyche is helping you, if that you know that the psyche and the soul are conspiring with each other to get you through something or to help you with something that worked at one time, you can have that moment of gratitude to say, oh, thank you for that time when I was in 6th grade and those kids were laughing at me. I never did that ever again because, wow. Then we have that moment of gratitude. It's just like, oh, but now I know that my fear of talking to people came from that moment in 6th grade. And I'm cool with that now. Thank you for helping me, because I knew that protected me then, but life is different now. People don't act like 6th graders anymore. People are now totally different, and it's like, cool. That gratitude goes a long way to shifting those 4D distortions. Like we talked about, when you have the boogers in your house, instead of going, oh my God, what are you going to do to me? You go, ooh, how can I help you? When you get to the shadow energy, it's instead of going, ooh, what are you doing to me? That's terrible. You go, oh, cool. Thank you for doing that for me. And it goes, yeah, cool. I mean, who doesn't like to have a little bit of recognition and acknowledgement, right? Shadows are the same way. All right. So remember that shadows hide an important part of you that you've been taught to hide, to repress or disavow. That's an important thing to keep in mind. And I see this all the time in spiritual communities. That, oh, I've got this talent. I know I can channel. I've seen this a lot. I can channel. I hear the spirits talking to me. But I remember growing up and I was told that if it's a spirit out there, it's actually a demon that is disguised as my grandma. It's not really my grandma, it's a demon. No. I understand why you have that feeling. You want to protect yourself and you want to stay safe. That's cool, but now let's open that up. Let's let grandma talk a little bit. Let's grandma have a little say. Okay. We'll let her talk. We'll do a little bit of automatic writing. We'll do a little bit of channeling. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Which is why one of my rules of interacting with the paranormal is the more you interact with the paranormal, the safer it gets. Because you start to see it for what it really is, and you start to look at all those TV shows and movies, and you're like going, that's not how it works. Because unfortunately, most of the people believe what they see in the TV show and movies about how the paranormal works, and then they break out the Ouija board, and they go, oh. And the next thing you know, they're putting up another TikTok video, and everyone goes, see? And instead, they connect with that shadow energy. You're like, yeah, I remember all those movies when I was a kid about the Ouija board. But now, wait a minute. I can set sacred space. I can set sacred space within. And I remember what it feels like to connect with Grandma. I remember what Grandma felt like. She was wonderful. She was, I can almost feel like she's here. Hi, Grandma. How are you? Oh, now they're having a better experience. Because now it's not a demon disguised with Grandma. It's really Grandma. That's what shadows do. That's what shadow work can do. Is you realize, yeah, I was afraid of the Ouija board. I was afraid of the paranormal because those movies were fun. Which, by the way, this is the kind of the sucky side of doing shadow work for paranormal stuff, is you can't watch those movies anymore. The more you interact with the paranormal and it's really safe and it's like, it's kind of boring. You know, dead people are actually boring. You go back and you watch those TV shows and you're like, oh, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't happen that way. Actually, Semi got in trouble, made a good friend out of it, when I started balking about one of those TV shows. And she's like, yep, I'm one of the psychics on there. And I'm like, oh! And I agree with you fully. And I'm like, oh. She's a great friend of mine now. And we get along well, and we talk about this stuff. And it's like, okay, great. Now I know somebody on the inside that says it's just as bad as I thought it was. Which is hilarious. All right. Guess what? Shadow work is soul work. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, shadow work. Because this is really how the psyche wants to get in the way and try to help you. But what if you can, like we talked about, the ego. What if the ego can be a version of your higher self? What if the ego can connect with a higher self instead of going, oh, no? What if it can be like, cool, that could be fun, let's try it. Oh yeah, higher self can be a daredevil too. It's fun. This is kind of fun. Shadow work. You clear away all that stuff that's been hiding the truth that your soul has been trying to live from day one. Remember we talked about that. Your soul came into the body to have a purpose, to have a function, to do something, to experience something, but your upbringing said, no, 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 you can't do this, you can't be that, you can't say this, you can't say that, you gotta believe this, you gotta believe that. Meanwhile, the soul is going, ah, get me out of here. We gotta do something with that. So, all that hidden truth, when you do this shadow work, you gain some clarity into your authenticity, which is why I say sometimes with shadow work, you're going to have an identity crisis. I grew up, I thought I was supposed to be this way, I knew the world worked this way, it has to be like this, things were going on. Now you do your shadow work, and you're like, oh crap, I don't know anything about who I am or where the world works, what do I do? Connect with higher self. Let it go. I've actually worked with some people that I'm hardcore, I work, but I burn out all the time. I'm like, we get to the point we finally realize that's what you did last lifetime. This lifetime, you're supposed to kick back, have a little bit more of a hedonistic approach to things. I'm like, what? My parents and my siblings would say no to that. I'm like, who cares? Why don't you explore some hedonism for a little while and not be so hung up? I've seen people go from like low-income jobs to high-income jobs, loving their life. I've seen people go from high-income jobs to low-income jobs, loving their life. Nobody gets to say what's authentic to you. Just you. Mom and dad, siblings, community you grew up in, they don't get to tell you what you are. You get to discover that. And that is actually part of, I'm going to say, the contract between higher self and the egoic self, the day-to-day self, is you get to co-create that world together. Higher self is not going to come in and say, you have to specifically be working in pet fungal infections on their feet, and that's it. Higher self isn't going to do that. Higher self is going to be like, I really like to work with animals somehow. What does that have to be? And then you work together to finally hone in and find out what that is. It's really kind of cool. It's a co-creative process. And that's why it opens that deeper pathway to your sacred connections, because you don't have that 4D distortion saying, ooh, I gotta be this, and if I'm not that, I'm gonna screw it up. And it also promotes your spiritual evolution at an accelerated pace. Boy, does it. Because now you don't have to hold on to who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing, how you're supposed to be doing it. And here's a fun little thing about shadows, about making those deep sacred connections and spiritual evolution, is manifestation. I've worked with a lot of people who, like, great, I'm trying to manifest this, but it all blows up. It goes to this. I want 10 of these things, but I get 3 of these things. And we work with the shadows. The shadows are creating that spiritual and emotional distortion. And we find out, wow, you were amazing at manifesting, because that shadow got in the way and said, no, you only get 3. I was like, that was awesome. Remember, shadow workers were weird. That was awesome, you only got 3, because you did something, you manifested something, and then it scattered. That's that 4D distortion getting in the way. Scattered in your manifestation, but you clear that out, you work through that, now you're connected 5D, 3D, who cares? You're just all connected, and you're like, cool. And that's one of the things I want to talk about, the difference between operant magic versus transcendent magic. Operant magic is, I'm going to light the candles, I'm going to put the incense on, I'm going to call the gods, I'm going to do the offerings so that I get the ideal job, I get the ideal car, I get the right lover, I get this and that. That's operant magic. Transcendent magic is shadow work. You get the crap out of the way. You connect with higher self. You connect with the life you're supposed to be, and the right person, the right job, the right car, the right friends, just automatically drawn to you. You don't even have to work at it. It just comes to you. It's just like, oh, how did that happen? The opposite is true also when you do shadow work. The people that were holding you down, the people that were reinforcing those 4D distortions, people that were contributing to the shadows, they're going to try to project those shadows onto you. And you're like, cool, I see you doing that. That's awesome. Keep doing your work. They're going to go, what is wrong with you? You used to be so fun. You used to be so cool. We used to be able to connect on this. And now they're going to like, I don't like you anymore. What is wrong with you? And sometimes that can be heartbreaking, especially when it's family. Family going, I don't know, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? And you're like, and it hurts, and sometimes you want to give up, because that's shadow work, right? That shadow's going, oh, I want to give up, this isn't right, I'm losing everything. But if you stick with it, You can wish them well, you can wish the best for them, and then the cool thing is you become like this beacon of light. You become this beacon of possibility, and people start seeing like, how did you do that? How did you do this? What are you doing to make that happen? What are you doing with this? How do I get on that one? And you have to go, get into your deep, dark, ugly place and feel that yucky stuff. All right. This is where I would show you another video. I'm sorry. The audio is not working. But, again, go to Gaia. That will be on next month. Go to Gaia.com, and you're going to hear that dude again talking some really good stuff about shadows and shadow energy. So now, yeah, we're doing great here. Remember, as shadow work, we do not get rid of anything. We don't banish, we don't clear, we don't exercise, we transform, we convert it. So we're going to be converting shadow energy. And we're going to learn how to, once we convert it, reintegrate that into the vital energy of your being so that you are complete, you are whole. And that's a key part of this work. You're not creating a whole, you are becoming whole. Right? So I'm also going to give you a little bit of a technique here so we can do some shadow practice to connect with self. And I have handouts. I printed up a bunch of handouts here with techniques that we're going to talk about today. So shadow work, what I want you to do is just like we did before, but we don't have to go as deep. We're not going to go there as far as we need to, right? What I want you to do is remember that feeling of connecting to the sacred. Knowing that that's a higher form of your own being. Knowing that that is you, your sacredness. And when you do this on your own, you can go really deep. You can really feel that sacredness. But now, also I want you to be aware of anything that comes up. Is there like, oh, no, but that's not sacred self. Ooh, no, I don't deserve this. Notice any of those feelings, any of those thoughts, any of those beliefs that come in to try to distort that connection. That's the key phrase, awareness. Because here's the cool thing. Remember, we're talking about shadows. And what's the number one thing all shadows hate?
Light.
Light. And when you cast light on a shadow, they fizzle away. And light is that metaphor for awareness, for knowledge, for wisdom, understanding. And that's what we're bringing here. Let me throw out this crazy thought to you. We've all heard about like the near-death life review, right? Where you go into the afterlife and then your sins are judged. That, you know, whatever you did throughout your life, someone's going to be judging you there. They got it all written down in a book, everything you ever did. What if that being there is actually your higher self? And higher level beings that know exactly why you did what you did. And they're fully accepting, fully aware of it. They say, that's cool. I know why you did that. It's okay. We'll atone for this together. We'll work on that together. What if that's what your shadows want? What if that's what the inner part of your being wants? Instead of you going, ooh, stop, get away from me, I want to do this, you go, I know why you're there. I know why you showed up. I know what you're doing. And that's what we want to do. When you're connecting with your higher energy, when you're connecting with that sacred energy, that little part of you that pops up and says, ooh, no, this is silly, this is dumb. Oh, I don't deserve this. Oh, I can't be that. Say, cool, thank you. That's awesome. Who are you? What are you doing here? What are you all about? Where does this energy come from? And what I want you to do is feel that feeling. Just notice that block. Notice those negative feelings, those doubts, those negative, distracting thoughts. But mostly, notice how they make you feel. This is the hard part for some of us men. Notice how those thoughts and beliefs make you feel. And breathe into that awful feeling. And sometimes it gets really uncomfortable. Breathe into that awful feeling and make it stronger. Go into your part of the body. Scan your body. Where am I feeling this? Where in my body? Because remember, energy and emotions, there's also a biochemistry for every emotion you feel. The cells of your body are literally programmed to feel that shadow energy. They want to feel that shadow energy because it's what they're used to. So you go into that part of your body, and the cells of your body make up your subconscious mind and has a memory of everything that ever happened to you. And knowing that the cells of your body have a memory of everything that happened to you, go bring your awareness into that part of the body where you're feeling that shadow energy and say, hey, where did I first learn to feel this? where did I first learn to feel this? What was going on? What was there? And just let your memory come through. And again, don't hold on to any expectations of it. I've had some people, when we start to do this, go, oh yeah, this was when I was in 6th grade and those boys were teasing me. And then I get into it and they're like, why do I remember being a toddler? And mom said something to me that was just awful. It's like, yeah, that's where it came from. And just that awareness, knowing that mom and dads have bad days too. Mom and dads make mistakes too. And just knowing that, just being aware of that, going, yeah, mom must have been having a bad day, but I know she loved me and know everything. Cool, thank you for this. And bring that gratitude, right? And this is what we just talked about, just being fully aware of that moment. Again, no criticism, no judgment, just awareness of it. And that's all you need. That's all you need to do, weirdly enough. Just be aware the first time you felt that disconnect from higher self, that disbelief in your connection to higher self. Where did it first come from? It's enough to make it go away. But if you want some more clarity, I want to kind of jam through this last bit. We're almost done here. But what you can do is go into that feeling of the shadow tree. Breathe into it. Breathe into it. Let it feel stronger. Okay, it's in the other room. I'll just talk a little bit louder. But pull out a single oracle card. Look at the oracle card. Describe it to yourself, because it gets the conscious mind going. Ooh, this is what that card is. Notice how that card makes you feel. Breathe into that feeling. Bring your awareness into that feeling. Ask that feeling, not the card, but that feeling, what that feeling means to you. And just let yourself free associate. Word from a word leads on to a word. Just let it free associate. Let your mind go. And that feeling will explain itself. That feeling will describe what that shadow energy is all about. And if you need to pull another card, just wash, rinse, repeat. Just pull another card. And again, this is shedding light onto that shadow. You don't have to know what that card means. It doesn't matter. Just notice how that card makes you feel. And that feeling will tell you what that shadow is all about. Now, shadow energy transformation, again, take those steps that we talked to be aware of the shadow energy. Connect to higher self, feel that sacred energy. What's blocking me? Be aware of those thoughts, feelings, beliefs that's blocking it. Notice the feeling. Amplify the feeling. Okay? Those are all the same steps as before, right? Ready for this? Now observe any qualities of that energy. Color, texture, shape. What does it look like? Now it says breathe into the empty place. Don't. That was a mistype. Not the empty place. Breathe into that energy, the opposite quality. Like if it feels like a sharp, black energy, breathe billowy white clouds into it. Breathe the opposite energy into it. Transform that energy. Connect with your sacredness and make that energy, amp it up to that higher state of being. And then that's how you transform that energy. You transform that feeling of that energy. And then you breathe that new form of that billowy white cloud energy. It's connected with the sacred. You breathe that back into your body. You integrate it to your whole being. Just through breath and awareness. So again, you're aware of that 4D distortion. You notice how it makes you feel, where in the body it feels, what does it look like? Does it have a texture? Does it have a color? Does it have a feeling? Does it have what to it? Change it, change it. Just imagine, use your imagination, transforming sharp blackness into cool, white, puffy. Connected to your feeling of higher self, raise that energy, breathe into it, make it this higher level energy. Raise it up, breathe it back into you. Breathe it back into your body, your being, let it integrate with you. And then imagine that bubble of white light all around you, sealing it, closing it off, being a part of you. And you transmute the shadow energy. It's simple. I can't tell you why it works. I can't tell you how it works, but I can tell you it does work. And that's the weird thing about shadow work, is it's super freaking easy. You just got to be consistent with it. And it gets really uncomfortable sometimes, because I don't want to do work on this. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel that uncomfortable thing. I get it. I totally understand it, and I share that with you. But remember that saying, the only way out of hell is through? Shadow work. You've got to feel it. You've got to experience it. The only caveat that I'm going to give you is if it's something traumatic. don't do shadow work yet for trauma, okay? Because you run the risk. Remember, we go back to the time when you first felt it, first experienced it. You don't want to re-traumatize yourself. You want to work with somebody that knows trauma and how to work with trauma and deal with trauma, and do your shadow work with that. Work together on that, okay? Okay. I think, yeah, this is exactly what we were just talking about. This is just further elaborating on what we talked about. I don't want to go through more of that. Same thing. So how to connect with me, Kaedrich.com. Go to kaedrich.teachable.com. I have shadow work classes there. You can also find me YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. But, this is the cool part, ready? Go to Gaia. You know, we talk about runes for transformation. We got beyond belief with working with seances, doing paranormal stuff, developing your abilities. This ancient civilization season was great. It's awesome stuff there. We got this new season on channeling up there. So check it out. There's some really good stuff there. Now, with that said, what questions have you all? Yeah.
Do you have a book?
Yeah, my book is Runes for Transformation, and it's talking about using runes as a transformational tool in inner and outer world.
Do you have it here?
I don't have it here. But it's a good question. Yeah.
My question is about like the dark side of the soul, or like midlife crisis type stuff.
Yeah.
So like, can you have like a midlife crisis like multiple times? Because I feel like I've had it like when I was 17, and then when I was like 22, 23, and I like just keep having like dark nights of the soul and or midlife crises, but I'm not even at my midlife yet, you know? So like,
Yep.
Can you talk about that?
Exactly. Dark Night of the Souls happen multiple times. It can absolutely happen over and over again. That was the big question is, can you have multiple like midlife crises or Dark Night of the Soul? And yes, absolutely. I see it quite a bit. And it's because when we're headed down a certain pathway, everything falls apart. We got to rebuild it. And I'm going to say this too. Sometimes what we experience as a Dark Night of the Soul is just the world around us going on. You can still do everything right, and still things could fall apart. Accidents still happen. And sometimes that's not your fault. And this is where I'll tell people that you may or may not be responsible for what happens to you, but you're 100% responsible for what you do about it. And so that's what happens when we experience it. Sometimes it is, we're headed down a certain path and the higher self goes, reset button, things fall apart. Okay, great, maybe we're supposed to go here, reset button, crap, things fall apart. We keep going.
So like, would a dark night of the soul also be like depression?
Maybe. We also have to take into account biochemistry of the body. Sometimes that's a biochemical thing that needs some help sometimes, and that's a maybe. Everybody's different, every situation's different, so sometimes it can be, sometimes it really is just something wonky in the body and needs some help. Yeah, it's a lot of factors to weigh into it, but all of that's possible. Oh, second row in first.
Have you ever seen a reptilian, and can you give us an example if you have?
Not in the flesh, but the energy of them. I have. I actually have had a number of clients whose higher beings or guides. I had a couple of them where they've actually had reptilian beings as their guide. And in one case in particular, and it's not giving away any private information to say it, they're like, I'm here to teach you how to be a badass.
Yeah.
To how to
It's not
get
all
your
bad.
Right, exactly.
It's like yin and yang, if anything.
Yeah. Sometimes they were there actually to be helpful. They had another sort of series of guys, but not an alien in like a physical reptilian alien in the flesh, but I've experienced their energy. One time was kind of negative, and we got rid of that. And the other time it was just like, yeah, I know you see me as negative, but rawr. It was kind of fun. Yeah.
My question, I guess, is a little complicated. So, like you say, like your higher self, like is connected to all these experiences. So, like you go to the next life or whatever. But then, how is it that your higher self is in that next life, experiencing it, but then also talking to the past life through the Ouija board?
Yep, exactly. How can the higher self be in all of these multiple lifetimes and talking to you through the Ouija board? It's because this brain that we're in, that is in our head, wants time to be linear. It wants one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, when it's not. It's all crunched in at once. I'll give you an example of this. is the near-death life review. We've all heard about that, right? The soul that's in the body exists in a timeless state. It doesn't have time like we have. The brain wants it to be linear time. So when somebody has a near-death experience, they get out of the body. Now they have now they're experiencing their whole life as a continuum of existence. Beginning, end, middle parts are all the same thing, all at once. It's experienced their whole life as a continuous existence, all together, right? Now it comes back into the body because the body's gaining life again. The brain has to make sense of that information. And it goes, oh, I was seeing my whole life flash before my eyes. When no, you were experiencing your whole life, all at once. And so that's how the higher self experiences everything. Everything all at once, like that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once. That's how higher self is.
So when grandma is coming to the Ouija board, she's at that same time, she could also be living her next life.
It's kind of weird, but when I was working with a client that was needing some help working with a loved one who died, and their loved one did not transition very well, they were having a lot of problems, having a lot of difficulties, and we were not getting good communication because they were just really fragmented and in a bad place. A future version of them showed up and said, hey, here's what you guys did to help me out. And you start doing that now, and it's like, oh, thank you. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. This brain wants everything to be linear,
Yeah.
but in the spiritual world, there's no linear time. It's just everything everywhere all at once. It's kind of cool.
Amazing.
Third row.
Okay,
Yeah, you.
I just wanted to share that. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but lately I've been playing a channel light language, and it just really takes care of stuff. Shadow work, which sounds like an oxymoron, and it's very a quick way to do shadow work. I just wanted to share that with you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, light language can be some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's pretty heavy though. It's not for the faint of the heart.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. I saw a hand up there.
Yeah, I have a question. I just want to hypnosis really quick from another, and he was dealing with a lot of kind of stuff like alcoholism, all kinds of stuff around his life, and it was like a 3-hour hypnosis, and all these entities were attached to him.
Yeah.
Like he would plant spirits and all these things. It was always when he was in like deep states of fear, and like some guy passed away, just driving drunk, and then he happened to be in a big fear in the area that happened, and then he entered his body. Like, how does that relate with like something where, let's say you're feeling like, oh, I have this, I can't stop drinking or something, and you think, oh, I need to do my shadow work, but is it actually like an entity that's in my body, or is that the 4D thing that you're saying we get creative, and that's where we say, oh, that's an entity that's not me.
That's a whole new workshop.
Okay.
No. It really is. It really is. But I'll give you a quick summary of what that is. One of my rules of working with the paranormal is similarities attract and perpetuate. And it's a normal thing in the spiritual world for energies and entities of a similar energy to coalesce, to congregate together. And so let's say, we'll talk about what I call a shade. A shade is a part of our energy field that we all build up that has like vices in it, or has a lot of those negative beliefs about ourselves. It's like a facade that we create. And when we die, if we haven't done our shadow work, the body and the soul goes one direction, the shade goes another direction. And if that shade is, let's say, programmed with severe alcoholism, it's going to go find a place where it has that. Like it's going to go find a dive bar. It's going to hang out with that energy field. Then it's going to find that one person that's just having that really bad time, really hard time with it, because it's similar energies. Similar energies attract and perpetuate. So that it's what I call an agreement. It's not really a conscious agreement saying, yes, you're an alcoholic spirit, so attached to me. It's like that inner feeling of like, oh, let's work together, let's connect together at the feeling, emotional level. And so now we do shadow work, we clear those distortions, and that shade is going, hey, you used to feed me this energy, what are you doing? We're doing the shadow work, and we're persisting in doing that shadow work, and really pushing hard. And this thing is like, fine. And then it leaves. So yeah, we can pick up attachments all the time that will feed shadow energy, which we have to be aware of that could happen. But if we are doing our shadow work initially and consistently and persistently over and over, those attachments are going to go, ew, that's awful, I don't like you, and it's going to leave.
Thank you for saying that, because I know in the hypnosis as well, it was just, he kept bringing the guy that was the clinician, he was bringing the shadows to the light, the entities to the light, and then they just
Yes.
So it's like, that's what you're saying, just bringing the shadows to light.
Exactly. Yep. Cool.
The question is, how do you shadow work on, like, if you have a dis-ease in your body? Like, you create, oh, like I have a knee problem, or I have my back, or my headache, or I have a gallbladder, or, you know, whatever problem that is like a health related. Can you do shadow work to get those out of you, like to break it up? Like, why did I want to experience a neck pain, or, you know what I mean?
Sort of, sometimes, maybe. And the reason why I'm saying that is, for example, studies on pain. People with chronic pain has found that if they are hating that pain, they want rid of that pain, they can't stand the pain anymore, that pain is like constantly a 9 or 10. Thank you. But if they can learn to live with the pain and say, cool, you're a companion, you're always going to be here, I'm not going to try to get rid of you. The parts of the body that are still in pain and triggering pain are triggering pain. They still will, but now it's reading it like a 2 or 3 because the brain is no longer going, but we're letting it go. So we can do that shadow work on letting that go. And sometimes stuff in the body is because the emotional body will communicate with the physical body if it's not getting its message heard. And so if we get that emotions out of the body, we connect with those emotions, we let them go, then that could have a reflection in the physical body. Sometimes things in the physical body is what the higher self can't get to experience, and we can't get rid of them. So it's a maybe. It's one of those things that we'll try it, we can look at it, we can see where it goes, and maybe. I've seen it affect some people, and I've seen it just go to the point where, like, okay, this is a permanent thing, I'm going to keep it here, and I'm okay with that. And that improved their life like a billion times, just being okay with it. So maybe.
Yeah, because I knew it was like energy, but I didn't know if it was shadow. You know what I mean? Like.
It could be. It might not be. Oh, we're almost running out of time. I'll tell you, way in the back, real quick. What's that?
I was just curious, you're doing seances here, is that correct?
Not at this one, but
Okay.
in other places I teach seances and do seances. Yeah, I mean, if you're in the Denver area, I've got a seance next month on the 25th, March 25th, in the Denver area.
What is this reptilian thing you're talking about? It's making me think of something that happened when I asked you perspective recently.
Oh.
I thought something followed me back, and I got really nervous, and I got chills, and then I kept telling myself, just go back to sleep, nothing's here, and then I heard this weird kazooie kind of sound. It was like a and I was like, get out.
Perfect.
I don't know.
We're almost out of time. It's a longer one to explain, but I'll tell you what we'll do. This is for everybody here also. Like if you're in the middle of the night and you have those weird creep out feelings of something going on, I want you to do something crazy. I want you to laugh at it. I want you to genuinely laugh at it like you're doing right now. Crinkle your eyes, laugh at it. Even if you have to fake laugh, if you're crinkling your eyes to a fake laugh, it will turn into a real laugh. And if it's something that's negative there to harm you, that will be poison to it. And it will go away. It's not like us humans where we go, what are you laughing at? It'll be poison. Like, I'm out of here. But if it's something that you're misinterpreting and that you're having like an initial fear response to and you're laughing at it, it's going to go, yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Do it again. Let's connect. And that will be kind of like a litmus test and a way to kick it out too. So next time you feel like that reptilian thing, laugh at it.
But
See what
that's
happens.
not what you're talking about when you guys are talking about the reptilian thing. I don't know. What is that?
It's just a different form of energy. Just like we're humans, they would have reptilian energy. Just like, you know, imagine bipedal reptile running around and not doing good things. Some do. Some do.
They try to influence our minds?
Yeah. That's a whole workshop. And we are out of time. So thank you everybody for coming. I do have stuff up here if you want. I've got some handouts here with the details on these practices that we just described. And I've got business cards so you can find my webpage and a little flyer about shadow work. So if you want to learn more about shadow work, it's all right here. Yeah.